Taff's words. Just a quick little update on the channel itself before we get into the content of the video, obviously titled the Mythical Ownership Vote. First of all, a bit of an update on the channel. I've been having a bit of a break lately, so I've taken a week out of doing any videos and many posts on like the Amber Army social media streams, so back to normal now. Basically, just to say, if you haven't seen anything coming through the last week or so, that's pretty much the reason why. So, getting on to the video itself. So, the Mythical Ownership Vote. So, in August 2018, supporters were at an open trust evening, like a Q&A information evening, sort of open meeting, so to say, where we learned the outcome of the vote for the preferred ownership model of the supporters. That vote went 75% in favour of the hybrid model, which is a blend of vested parties that would have a different percentage of ownership between them, but we maintain 20 to 25% of our ownership, so we still get a good fan input. But what that would do then is hopefully attract the right investors and the right parties, hopefully like the council, for example, and the right sort of business partners to invest in the club for a stake of ownership. That would see us in a position where we may get the investment needed to take the club to a new level. That's what I voted for personally. That's what 75% of a vote of 750 supporters told us. So 75%, 3/4 of our support base would like to see the hybrid model. Now, considering that was very little over 2 years ago, we've had no movement on that. So the fans spoke, and it would seem that we're now being ignored, not listened to. We obviously voted for that. We had 1 or 2 workshops following, and there's been nothing on it. So the fact that the vote was done, I mean, it was an online poll, I'll give you that. It wasn't an official vote, but that they gave them what they needed to advance to a stage of consultation, so we say, with supporters to look at exploring that avenue. Like I say, a couple of workshops later, nothing was really done. I think the near promotion to League One may have been a bit of a blinker, but then obviously we had another season. Obviously the coronavirus has halted that to an extent, but they can't use it as an excuse for the lack of progression with those talks. I'd like to have thought that we'd have been at a point where everything would have been concluded and the preferred model would be in place by now. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So I basically posed the question as to where is this ownership model and why have we not had any talks about it since? Like I said, we had that vote. Like I said, there was 1 or 2 workshops to discuss the different options of hybrid model, but it's a very simplistic model, really. It is basically, we sell some of our share of the club, and we have other people running it alongside us. So hopefully a more stable and sustainable board of directors than what we currently got, because the turnover on them, I think we've only got 2 founding members of the club ownership board still on. That'd be Gavin Foxwell and Sean Johnson. Everybody else, we've had people come and go. We get hardly anybody wanting. As I said, the last batch of directors walked onto the board because there was no opposition for them. Like I said, the one before that, only 1 missed out, and the one before that, only 1 missed out. So it goes to show that at the time when the trust ownership happened, I think taking over the club ourselves and cleaning up the mess left behind by the previous board was what was needed at the time. But then at that point, it would seem as though once the Great Escape had been achieved, that was the purpose served by that board, and that was when I started feeling, right, okay, so for this club to kick on and push on to another level, we are going to need some outside investment, but we need to be very careful who we include in that, Because if you look there are many businessmen who have ruined football clubs up and down the country. You look at Bolton, you look at Bury, you look at Morecambe, you know, they nearly went. Wigan have just gone into administration. What we don't want is to be in that position. The good thing about fan ownership is that, you know, as much as some of us don't tend to agree with what the board of directors do, at least they're fans of the club and are not putting their own interests above the club's. You know, they're in it for the club. And you know, I can't imagine anybody would want to be a director out of personal choice, you know, and unless it's satisfying some kind of ego, which I'd be very surprised if that is the case with any of them, because of the nightmare stories I've heard of actually being on that board, and especially with the flack that you get from supporters for being there as well. You know, you put yourself right in the firing line, and who would really want to do that? So basically, what I'm questioning now is, why have we not progressed following that poll? Like I said, if it was a small margin, I can understand them being a bit hesitant to see it through. But like I said, 750 fans voted. 75% of them decided that that was the way they wanted to go forward. So if you look at 75% of 750, that's an awful lot more than the amount of fans that have actually put into this new sponsorship scheme, which, even though I've had one or two people, you know, who are sort of close to things there, try to explain the reasoning behind it, there's no convincing me that it's a mistake. And I think the fans have voted with their feet on that one, by the fact that out of our average home gate, less than 10% have actually put in a donation themselves, which speaks volumes for, you know, the idea itself. It is an epic failure, unfortunately, but it does look as though it's going to be pulled over the line to get the 40 grand that they were hoping for. An epic failure in the amount of fans that have turned their back on it. It's what's going to happen at the moment, you know. I mean, I posed it to the people who were trying to explain to me, well, why didn't the club organise a sponsorship deal and get the money in the bank first, instead of putting it to a gamble? It is a gamble. You're gambling our main sponsorship here. And unfortunately, you know, they're still short a target. Only 300 and something fans have actually donated into it. A lot of them being big donations from business types. Individual people have turned their back on it. I wouldn't say it's all down to the fact that money's tight for people individually. I'm sure plenty of people would have been on furlough if they haven't been working. If people have lost their jobs, obviously they can have bigger fish to fry than helping the club out at the moment. But I pose the question, why wasn't the sponsorship secured? Because I still stand by the fact that I believe that if Alex Eagle was tasked with finding a sponsor, he would have found one without any bother at all. He would have found one, you know, especially for that kind of money. 40 grand is not a massive amount of money for a big business to let go of, to be on the front of a home shirt. It's not a massive amount of money. But then the thing is, what I find is that for a charity, being on the front of a football shirt is rather insignificant when, if you're looking for donations for a charity and an awareness, the club could give everything they need to for free by actually posting things for them on social media, retweeting tweets or posting awareness through tweets, because there's actually more followers for the club on social media than there is people in the stadium, and probably people watching, for that kind of exposure to actually go anywhere. The only other thing then being FIFA, of course. But then at the same time, I mean, how many people are going to pay attention to a charity on FIFA for Newport County when they're too busy playing with the likes of Liverpool, Man United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and all them kind of teams? So for me, I think the club could have achieved giving all three charities, instead of just having to pick one, all three charities could have had, you know, the same, if not better, exposure by actually regularly posting things for them online, and then still had a main sponsor for the kit, and then still had a separate fundraiser, which was a club fundraiser, where we're aiming to raise 40 grand for the club to help us through this tough time. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's no amount of pride in the world that could prevent you from asking the fans who own the club to actually put a bit more money in than what they usually do. A lot of people wouldn't have paid any money for the last few games of the season, so I'm sure they would be happy to subsidise some of their ticket money that they would have spent, or people would be happy to just put their money in because it purely out of love for the club anyway. So what you would have found is that a separate fundraiser probably would have raised even more than the 40 grand. I mean, splitting the kit sponsorships could be a bit of a stroke of genius, so that side of it I agree with, because it's been pointed out that, you know, if you get one big kit sponsor who have everything, you might not get quite as much money as what you do by splitting it, and then you've got to give them all the perks that come with it. Whereas these sponsors, you can give them, you know, a lesser package for a lesser price, but in total make more money. So I can't for the life of me understand why we didn't just go out and get a sponsor, utilise our social media to raise awareness for these charities and try and get people to individually donate to them anyway, and then at the same time run a separate club fundraiser to raise money for the club up to 40 grand, and then offering 50% to the charities then after the 40k mark. Anyway, they could have run that scheme outside of sponsorship instead of getting the fans to dip in their pockets to fund the club's sponsorship that a company could have done in a day. And so far we've been doing it for about 3-4 weeks and we're still not at 40 grand. I know there's a few more weeks to go, but we're still not at 40 grand. We could have had that money in the bank within a day, or within whatever terms or whatever day the company would actually pay for the sponsorship, you know, but you understand where I'm coming from. So I think personally, if we'd have adopted our hybrid model, we wouldn't be in a position where we'd need to put the begging bowl out to fund a sponsorship deal. The begging bowl out, because we're in tough times, in addition to a sponsorship deal, yes. But I just think they've gone about it all the wrong way. And nothing anyone have said to me since I've declared my objection to it has really done anything to sway my way of thinking about it. So I still believe it's a very, very bad idea. There's ways around of making it so we had the money in the bank. We could have done a separate fundraiser, doubled our money, you know, because after you've done that fundraiser, are you going to do another one? Missed a trick on that one, I think. So that's how I feel. If we'd have been in with that hybrid model, we wouldn't have, you know, people on the board who would have been thinking so charitably, who would have been thinking about putting the club first, which is what we should have done, and obviously push the charities in a different way. You know, obviously charities that are close to the club's heart, of course, you know, you're going to want to do right by them. We could have done that without giving away a sponsorship. Well, not giving away, but putting a key sponsorship in on a gamble, getting the fans to raise the money for it. I could repeat myself over and over. It's just done my head in, basically. So yeah, the myth, as I say, the myth of the ownership vote. What's happening? Fans voted, and nothing's really been done to appease the desire of the supporters since then. So there's the question. Where's the answer? Let's hope we find one. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheerio for now, and as always, up the county. Many thanks for watching the latest content on the Amber Army channel. Please make sure you leave us a like. Make sure you subscribe for more content, both for the neutral football fan and also plenty of Newport County. Even more Newport County content can be found on the club's iFollow channel on the link above. It is just £4.49 per month to subscribe to that service. And those of you feeling extra generous can also support us on Patreon on the link at the bottom there. That would be a monthly donation of your choice. Thank you again. Make sure you've subscribed, and as always, up the county.